Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Trade Australia. I'm your host, Lawrence Christoffelsz. Joining me now is David McCredie, who's the CEO of the Australian British Chamber of Commerce in Sydney. Hi David, great to see you again.
Great to be with you, Lawrence. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. David, first of all, Happy New Year and congratulations on the FTA that was signed off on the 17th of December, just before Christmas.
Yeah, look, a great achievement by the two governments. The Chamber, the Australian British Chamber of Commerce, has obviously been heavily involved in trying to get the program on the road and make sure that it was delivered, and making sure that our members are well heard and their issues and our advice was taken on board. I'm really pleased to say that we're really delighted with the outcome. Broadly speaking, it covers everything that we could hope for. In time, everything will be tariff-free in terms of goods trade between the two countries. Some great opportunities around services, mobility, but there's lots to talk about. So I'll let you ask some more questions rather than me just championing on with all the great things that are going to come out of the FTA. But to get it nailed before Christmas, possibly the fastest ever bilateral FTA done in the world. They're still checking the record books on that, but certainly done very quickly and with a great amount of reach in the program too.
Yeah, no, well done. And I know you, as you said, been heavily involved with that. So I'm sure that's add to the way it's been expedited. So congratulations on that. And one of the things I want to just expand upon is, what does it mean for the countries? What are some of the key benefits and outcomes that you mentioned? Are there specific sectors? Can you expand a little bit on that for us, David, for the viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, from a trading goods perspective, it doesn't matter which side of the equation you come from. There's basically the elimination of tariffs. There's a little bit of a delay over a few items like red meat. It takes a little while longer to come into force that it's genuinely tariff-free, but broadly, everything will be tariff-free eventually. That's the good side of the equation, which is terrific, of course. Tariffs are generally around 5%. On goods being imported roughly into Australia, and the same going the other way, some of them slightly higher. Looking at services, there's huge amounts of opportunity in services. The provisions around digital trade in particular are really interesting to our members. I know that there's been a lot of conversations around the investment rules and improved investment conditions, moving those FIRB thresholds up. Remembering that the UK is the second largest investor here in Australia, so making it even easier for them to invest here is clearly going to be a benefit to Australia. It adds on to all of those normal things that we talk about in terms of encouraging investment between our two countries. In fact, whether that's into Australia or into the UK, is that we have so many commonalities in terms of rule of law, the way that we approach our accounting systems, our political systems, the way our governance structures work and so on, are all very similar. So it makes it really easy anyway. But to remove those thresholds on investment really does or move them up, really gives it more runway for businesses to invest here, and we're really looking forward to seeing a really strong British investment pathway and pipeline over the next few years. Then looking more broadly, mobility is a key factor, obviously, as I mentioned before. Without doubt, the provision that young people can now call themselves young right up to the age of 35.
Yeah, I saw that.
Mobility visa. I still don't quite meet the criteria, but
Me either.
there'll be a few people who'll be on the right side of that ledger. There's some great opportunities. The working holiday visa here in Australia now no longer has the agricultural component. There is a new agriculture visa that's going to come in the next little while here in Australia, which will promote some of those agri opportunities that we've looked at in the past. But agri-tech in particular will have a great opportunity going forward in both directions, actually. So there's some great pieces around that. In terms of professional services, when you're looking for new staff, looking for particular skills, that global war for talent between Australia and the UK, we're now opening the door to let those people who are best qualified to do the job be approached right up front. If we want to have the best infrastructure, we want to have the best systems, government programs, private sector programs delivering for our country, we need the best people in the world, and there's an avenue for us to get the best people we can from the UK, and indeed for the UK to get them from us. And we believe it won't just be a brain drain or gain in one direction or the other. We actually believe that there will be brain circulation where people will move backwards and forwards between the two countries. We already see that in some sectors already, but this will really loosen the reins around that and really let us charge forward in the post-pandemic era to make the most of those skills that we desperately need at both ends of the equation.
Yeah, fantastic, David. I can, I can see the excitement in your face and in your voice. It's great to see what's about to happen with the FTA, and that mobility piece. I read that with as similar to you. Obviously, don't meet the cutoff anymore, but things around that entrepreneurship and innovation sharing that you talked about was well documented in some of the summaries. So I totally agree with you. I think there'll be so many companies here in Australia really excited about sharing those innovations, and the spirit of entrepreneurship between the two countries is really exciting. With the timings, David, what I mean, that was the 17th of December signed off. It was really quick. What are the next steps, and what do you think, how long will it take to actually start to ratify all these things?
Well, that's probably the $64 question at the moment, given that Australia's obviously heading towards a federal election campaign in the not too distant future, and needing to have a period where the federal government's in caretaker mode. But also at the UK end, we've not seen them have to really engage with a brand new FTA effectively from scratch. All the previous ones, Japan, others, have been rollovers of the EU, perhaps with a few extras, particularly in the case with Japan, but largely it was stuff that had already been agreed, whereas this is something new. It probably goes a lot further than most of the other agreements that they have, certainly around a number of areas around investment and around mobility. There are certainly areas there that are not replicated in other FTAs, and certainly it will need some review and discussion at both ends to actually get through the process. So in Australia, we have the Joint Standing Committee on Treaties, which will review it. It traditionally has needed 20 joint sitting days for it to sit in Parliament to be adequately assessed by the Standing Committee. Now, obviously, over the last couple of years, standing committees have had to take new forms given the impact of COVID. So we're hopeful that actually we might get this through a process faster than waiting for after the election. There's some question mark around if it doesn't have enough days before the election, what happens there? Does it need to restart afterwards? I'm not 100% sure where the legal arguments have got to on that, but I believe both sides are pretty keen to get it done and move it forward in terms of both the coalition and the Labor Party are reasonably happy with the agreement and happy to move it forward. Obviously, the coalition and Dan Tehan, having signed it, are very happy with it. Agreement. But it's something that it's in the national interest to get it done. So we're hoping that it might be ratified at the Australian end before the election, but we'll wait and see. The UK end may take a little bit longer just because this is learning what this process needs to look like for them. As I say, it's slightly different than what they've done before. But we're very hopeful that it will come into force at some point this year, possibly as early as the beginning of Q3. But I'd like to think before the end of Q3, with any luck, we can get it over the line.
Wonderful. Well, it's still, even if that's the case, it's still going to be a very fast FTA. So that's exciting. And I think, I agree. If we can get it across the line, that'll be wonderful to really get those Australian and UK businesses taking advantage of that. And the next part
right.
of it, sorry, Dave.
Sorry, Lawrence. I just wanted to add, I think the really important thing for businesses to think about is whatever that timeline looks like, whether it's a 1 July or slightly later in the year, the time is now actually to start thinking about how to really engage with this opportunity. Clearly, if you're already exporting to the UK or you've already got investment from the UK, then you'll know where the nuts and bolts are to make the most of what this FTA is going to provide. But if you're thinking about starting out on a journey to export to the UK in particular, now's the time to start getting your ducks in a row, start thinking about how you're going to access the market, start thinking about what you need to do to be really ready to take advantage of it. Because I think when the time comes, you want to be ready, and plenty of businesses are going to be ready. Your competitors are going to be ready. So it's time is now to start that preparation process.
Absolutely, David. That's a great segue into the next question, actually, because I know that your chamber, the ABCC, do so many great things throughout the years. Obviously, with this now, there must be so many things that you're going to deliver across the country to help those companies prepare for the FTA and really maximise the opportunities. What have you got in mind? What have you got planned for 2022?
Yeah, that's a great question, Lawrence, and we're doing an awful lot, is the short answer. The opportunity to sign an FTA only comes along once in history, so we're going to spend a huge amount of time in the first half of this year in providing those education sessions, working with partners like the ECA, the Export Council of Australia, Trade Australia, working with Austrade, with the Department of International Trade at the UK end, amongst a myriad of other partners, DFAT and so on. Plus our corporate members and sponsors, to really provide as much information as we can to people within our network and the broader community as to how best to take advantage of the provisions of the FTA. We're really keen to make sure that this is not just something which is a nice soundbite for a minister and a photo opportunity, but something that really moves the needle. The trade opportunities between Australia and the UK are significant. We haven't focused on the UK for a long time. There is a great opportunity, and we've already seen some industries like the wine industry significantly readdressing their position in the UK, particularly due to the need to realign following challenges in China and elsewhere. So there's great opportunities to diversify to the UK if you're not there already. There's great opportunities for us to share how to do that. We're working closely with our friends at the Australia-UK Chamber in the UK as well, of course, and the agent generals over there, of course. Most of those are relatively new to post. Tim Dillon from Victoria. We've got David Ridgway, who's been there a couple of months from South Australia. Dave Stewart, who's just started from Queensland. John Longalant, who started in October. And Stephen Cartwright, the new New South Wales Agent General, who will be there in post early this in the next couple of weeks. So everybody's new and fresh, really ready and raring to go. So it's a great opportunity for us to work with all of those partners to deliver a great program of events. If you go to britishchamber.com/events, you can find them all there.
Fantastic. Great, David. We're looking forward to coming along to some of those myself and really supporting the cause, because I think you guys do great work, and it's going to be an exciting year. Well, exciting couple of years, I'm sure, as this all starts to unfold and really take advantage and turn up the heat, if you like, on all the opportunities. The other thing as well is you've just mentioned, I think it was today or the day before, I saw a survey going out to your members and talking about what the FTA means for them. How would you describe the survey? I don't have it in front of me, that's why I ask.
Look, the survey is pretty straightforward, actually. So following the signature on the 17th of December, the Chamber has put together a review of what's in the FTA, so you don't have to read the couple of thousand pages in total, but you can go to our website, you can check in the Australia-UK relationship. There's a tab at the top, and you click on that and you can find firstly the review of what's in the FTA, and then also the opportunity to join this survey. It's very quick, it takes about 4 or 5 minutes to complete. It's fairly straightforward. We don't ask anything too personal. It's just about understanding whether or not your business can take advantage of the FTA. And part of this process is it's a two-way street. One is it'll hopefully open your eyes to the opportunities that are there for you. But secondly, it will help us to understand where you see the greatest value, and making sure that through our event program, but also how we work with others, that we're bringing the right opportunities to your business to take advantage of the benefits of the FTA, and really to deliver a better economic outcome, both for Australia and for the United Kingdom.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's exciting. And we'll put the link for those survey into our social media posts for this episode as well. So plenty of people who are watching can jump on and have their say as well. So I think that this is the whole purpose of the show, is to try and increase the awareness of all these opportunities to engage with people such as yourself and your team to really maximise those trade and investment opportunities. So, finally, I know you probably answered this question already, but what are the tips and advice that you can summarise for Australian companies, whether they've dabbled already in the UK, or to company, as you said before, diversifying for some new markets? Are there any specific tips or advice that you give for an Australian company looking to the UK?
Look, Lawrence, of course, I'm going to say the first thing they should do is be a member of the Australian British Chamber of
Yep.
Commerce. But look, I think realistically it is to have a conversation with people who can help you. And that's certainly what the Chamber's here to do. We're really keen through Paul Wright and our team of commercial partnerships managers across the country. We're very keen to engage with you to understand which businesses you need to speak to, which governments and parts of government do you need to speak to take your business forward, whether that's domestically here in Australia, whether that's exporting to the UK, whether that's investing here, which way you want to look at this bilateral relationship, we're interested in helping. As I said earlier, we're aligned with all sorts of government agencies. We're aligned with private sector providers that can provide support as well. So really come and have a chat with us. We'll help understand where your situation is currently and what you need to do to map that successful future for your business.
Fantastic. Thanks, David. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Congratulations once again. And I know it's going to be a busy couple of years for you. And I know that so many companies are going to watch this and get in touch. So great work again. And looking forward to catch up in person sometime soon.
Thanks, Lawrence. Been terrific to be with you.
Fantastic. Thanks, David. So I've just heard from the CEO of the Australian British Chamber of Commerce, David McCredie. As you heard, they've got a whole range of opportunities to help your business thrive in this bilateral environment. It's an exciting FTA. It's probably not far off. So as he said, get prepared, get ready now. And they're the ideal chamber to help you to maximise and leverage all those opportunities coming forward. So stick around after the break. We'll be joined by another expert talking about this exciting FTA. We'll see you very soon.
Now is the time to reduce costs and get better service from your logistics partners. We go to market for you. We do all the work, you make all the decisions. First, we review your requirements, customized to your business. Then, we design your tender documents, RFQ and submission templates. Next, we put it out to market, to suitable service providers only. We analyse and score the submissions using a weighted scorecard. We shortlist the best candidates specifically matched to your needs. We invite presentations from the candidates. They compete for your business. You select and enjoy the benefits, including KPIs and SLAs. We offer fixed price programs starting from as little as $5,000. When did you last compare your service providers? Contact us today at the Australian Trade and Logistics Corporation.
Welcome back, everyone. Now we've got the absolute pleasure to be joined all the way from London by Tim Dillon. Tim's the Agent General to the United Kingdom, Commissioner to Europe and Israel at State Government here in Victoria, Australia. Hi, Tim. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Lawrence. Pleasure to be here.
And, I wanted to ask you, first and foremost, what are you most excited about in the FTA?
Good question. The FTA is a very ambitious and comprehensive FTA, arguably probably one of the most ambitious ones Australia's entered into. And there's a lot of detail in there and a lot of benefits. But the one I'm particularly excited about is the aspect in the agreement around mobility. So the agreement includes improved mobility. It also includes, along with this, mutual recognition of qualifications and services. So, for example, young professionals, let's say lawyers or accountants, in Victoria will be able to come and practice in the UK without having to necessarily go through all the requalifications currently existing. You also have the Youth Mobility Visa, which has seen great movement between the two countries to date. This is being extended from 31 years of age as the cutoff up to 35 years of age. And whereas previously it was only for 2 years, it's now being expanded to 3 years. So I'm excited about that because I can see how it's going to help, with the flow of talent and skills between the two countries, and especially for those smaller Victorian companies that are starting to enter up in the market, coming up to the market, setting up their office, could be a sales office or something, but really needing that technical advice and that support that they can send a young, ambitious, outgoing staff member from Melbourne into the market for 3 years to really get the business running and established. Right up there.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. I think, Tim, that unfortunately I don't make that cut off anymore, but it's a good plus for definitely people who are, as you say, very driven, very ambitious. And the UK has always been a really sought after market for Australian, young entrepreneurs and young executives as well. So, Tim, where do you see the biggest opportunities for Australian companies within the UK?
Yeah, so I've been fortunate with my career to have been in a number of countries, had a number of postings to countries where, while I was there, Australia did negotiate a free trade agreement. So back in the day, I spent time in Japan. I was also in Malaysia, in Southeast Asia, when we signed the agreement with Malaysia, MAFTA, and more recently, in my last posting, which was to China, I saw the China-Australia Free Trade Agreement. So I can safely say I saw firsthand the impact that these free trade agreements have on business, on the level of exports that go. There have been notable increases in those other markets, so we're hoping to see the same. But it's also about the goodwill that it generates and just that awareness of each other's markets. So I think that's an opportunity in itself. But there's a number of, obvious opportunities. And, for a place like Victoria that really specialises and prides itself on its food and beverage offering, I think there's going to be some opportunities emerge there, such as, wine's an easy one, but something we do well and I think will continue to grow. Interestingly, and it's not just the free trade agreement, it's also some of the repercussions of Brexit. Olive oil. So we've got a great company called Boundary Bend who ship olive oil. Previously, that has created problems with the tariffs to enter the market. When they go, it's going to be a much more level playing field as well. So I think there's opportunities around food and beverage. And last year, we commissioned a report to look at what particular sectors, will grow the most. And what we came back with, and this is in food and beverage, it was wine, red meat, processed food and counter-seasonal produce. So we've shared that with our companies in Victoria and think there's some good potential to grow those areas. We've been working with great companies from Victoria like Four Pillars Gin. Nothing better than going into a restaurant and looking at the gin menu, the drinks menu, and there's a Four Pillars gin on it. Cheetham Salt's another company. Boundary Bend olive oil, who I just mentioned, they're doing great things, and Mork Chocolate. So I think there's scope for expansion into the UK in these areas. Speaking on some of the other areas, the one that springs to mind and is perhaps the most exciting and links with that mobility factor I said before, but I think technology. In recent years, the Australian and UK governments have signed a number of agreements, particularly around the technology space, that are going to strengthen the collaboration. So these agreements have gone into fintech, space, clean tech and defence. And generally they support two-way trade with trade missions, R&D partnerships and what we're calling regulatory harmonisation. We already have a number of Victorian technology companies that have had great success in the region, and they include companies like Afterpay, Airwallex, CultureAmp, Carbon Track, Swoop Aero, Wynomia and Equium. Many of these tech companies get their start by participating in an event that we've been supporting for the past few years, and that's London Tech Week. It's one of the most successful trade missions that Global Victoria delivers, and last year we supported 59 Victorian companies to take part virtually in the London Tech Week. And the sectors we particularly focused on last year, we change them each year, but last year's focus, just to give a flavour of what we were focusing on, was MedTech, EdTech, CreaTech and Future Tech. So we're planning to lead another mission to London Tech Week in June this year and expect another strong sign up from Victorian companies. In addition, life sciences is another really exciting opportunity that we see. Obviously, the impact of COVID has really generated interest in the healthcare life science sector, and since the start of the pandemic, My understanding is here in the UK, the number of people waiting for NHS treatment, NHS is the National Health System, treatment in England has grown by a fifth, with something like 5.3 million people waiting for treatment. There's currently a projected funding gap of at least $20 billion, or £20 billion, I should say, by 2023 in the NHS. So what that actually means is it's a great opportunity for our health and medtech companies that are innovative to provide their solutions to the market, because the health system is screaming out for innovation, efficiency, and cost savings. Already we've been dealing with companies like CSL, well known to all our viewers, no doubt, but other companies like Alcidion, which provides a fantastic IT platform that's being picked up in the health sector. I mentioned, I think previously, Ego Pharmaceutical. They're another great company that's working in this place, as well as Pala Pharma. All have a presence in market and all have been having some success here and growing strongly. In addition, defence is another area that is offering some opportunity, and I'm sure you saw last year that Australia, the UK and US entered into a tripartite defence agreement. Already the majority of Australian Defence Force capital acquisition projects have been awarded to UK and European companies through the federal government's Global Access Program. So Victorian companies can leverage these major projects to partner with international primes and enter into their supply chains. And I think there's some great opportunities there. And we're seeing companies in Victoria such as Morand, CableX, Speed 3D, Talus Australia, Defentex, Mackay Rubber, and Ocean Software are already achieving, $1 million contracts and outcomes of exports to Europe and many more locations through their engagement with these primes and tapping into that footprint. We actually have in our office a dedicated defence expert who can assist companies. He comes from the industry with lots of knowledge and connections, and has advised on, how to do business in the defence sector in the UK.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's it's a lot of stuff that Victoria is getting really involved with and supporting companies with here, Tim. So congratulations on all the work you're doing there. Before I ask about some tips and advice, Tim, you mentioned earlier that you've been posted in all these other countries over your career. Now, I understand you've been posted into the UK, into London, since July 2020. So, what's it been like, basically being posted in the middle of a global pandemic?
Yeah, it's been a challenge. Certainly it's been, I would have to say, the strangest beginning to a posting I've ever experienced. I think within a week of arriving in August 2020, there was talk about a lockdown, and within a month they did go into a full-blown lockdown. So I went from a fairly strict lockdown in Melbourne to the UK and straight into another lockdown there. So it meant we had to adapt as a team, working from home, but definitely adapted to the digital, medium, I guess, to interact with companies. I think one of the positives of it was people working at home. You're not wasting as much time on commuting, and the general sort of hustle and bustle, when you're going into the office or running from meeting to meeting. So what we found was actually engaging with companies, particularly from an investment perspective, was much easier, and we got really good access to the senior decision makers in some of these largest companies that you can imagine out of the UK. Were willing to spend time on a Zoom call or a Teams call and discuss their business and their plans. And even despite COVID, last year for us was the most successful year in attracting investment, foreign direct investment into Victoria from the UK and Europe. So a lot of those projects continued, not without their challenges, but they continued, and we did see good results on that front.
Thanks, Tim, for that insight. Congratulations again. So finally, to wrap up, what are your top tips for Australian companies looking to expand to the UK?
Yeah, thanks, Lawrence. The UK is a highly developed and sophisticated consumer market, so there's a lot of competition, and it's not an easy market to break into. I think sometimes there's a perception that just because they speak English, that it's easy, but it does take some planning. So I think to tackle the market, companies should do their research and develop the well-planned market entry strategy, and that's something that my staff in our office are happy to work with companies on. It's also an expensive market to operate and succeed in. In particular, just given its distance away from Australia, and if you're having to travel there to the market, that adds costs. But in general, it's an expensive market. So you need to ensure you've set aside the right amount of capital to support entry. And make sure it's a success, and I'd encourage companies to think long term. It's always going to be more than just a single visit. You have to have a commitment to the market. The other thing, I guess, is that you have to be price competitive in the market, particularly when you're shipping from Australia. So when I say you have to be price competitive, you can't rely just on price alone. Those shipping costs are going to make it more expensive. So you have to have a point of differentiation, and you really need to consider what your unique selling point is and what makes you better or unique compared to the competitors. So that's another thing that, again, we can work with companies to advise, and give examples of success stories in the market that might help guide. Another consideration is your branding and marketing. So, for many Australian companies that to date have been focused on Asia, strategies that worked in Asia in this regard will not necessarily transfer direct to the UK, as the consumers are very different. But also similar to Melbourne, London and the UK is a highly multicultural country. London City itself has something like 40% of the population born outside of the UK. So, there's similarities, but there's also differences, and I think we need to look into those. The obvious one, I touched on it before, but it's got to be more than one visit to the market. It goes without saying, we're a long way away, but you do have to do business face to face, I think, to secure the deals. At some point, you can only do so much over Zoom or phone calls or via emails. I think if you want to have a long-term sustainable business, you have to plan on coming to the market regularly, or look at having some sort of in-market representation. And many companies do that. Many companies use it as a launching pad into Europe as well. I know you've spoken to my good friend David McCredie already in this show. But something I would encourage all companies to do is to utilise the incredible network of, I suppose, resources and Australians engaged in the relationship that can share their knowledge and expertise. So David and his team at the Chamber of Commerce there in Australia, British Australia Chamber of Commerce, they can play a role in sharing information. Similarly, in market here, there's the Australia-Britain Chamber of Commerce, who can also share. That's the counterpart organisation. You have Austrade. You have, if you're a state, you've got the state government in ourselves, but other state governments are represented here as well. And then you also have the expat network that are out there, and they link in with organisations like the British Australia Society. So there's a wealth of knowledge in those networks, and I'd encourage people to join the Chamber of Commerce's, become members. You'll get access to their information, but also their networks, and talk to people, reach out. People are generally very open and give their advice freely, and they want to see others succeed. So I think it's a great networking platform there. The other tip is for companies to look outside of London. Too often they come and just think London's the centre, and yes, there's some great opportunities here, but there's also some very good regional locations that are worth looking into and setting up your base. And if you are looking at setting up a bit of a base, and talk to those regional governments. They're often very competitive in what they can do to support your establishment. We've worked closely with Ego Pharmaceutical, which is a great Victorian company in the health and wellness sector. They've set up their own sales team here, and they got a lot of help from the local regional governments, so we can introduce those. And finally, Lawrence, I guess one of the points I think is becoming more and more important is around sustainability. So what many of your viewers, I'm sure, are aware is that last year in November, the UK hosted the COP26 conference, which is one of the most important sort of climate change conferences that happens. And it just brought home to me how much attention this particular region, the UK, but also Europe more broadly, is paying on sustainability. And the consumers are also asking these questions. Companies, because the consumers are asking questions around it, things around, the sustainability of products, supply chains, and carbon miles. Companies are now starting to ask their suppliers, what's your carbon footprint and what are you doing about the environment? So I think this is something that's only going to increase as we move forward. And so Australian companies need to come up, I guess, with a way to combat that. It could be what you're doing locally for the environment to offset carbon miles or to contribute. It could be other projects that somehow, or processes that you're implementing to reduce the carbon footprint. But that's something that's only going to get more and more attention and make it a more competitive space.
Yeah, totally agreed. I think, Tim, there's UK and Europe in general have been leading the way when it comes to ESG frameworks and sustainability reporting. So you're absolutely right. I think Australia's got a great opportunity to leverage that to their advantage, because we are very much recognised in the right way of doing business. And I think there's always room to improve, but Australians in general, the companies do pretty well.
Indeed. And the other area, Lawrence, I think probably worth noting is e-commerce, and just that has exploded over the COVID period. The UK is now something like the 4th largest e-commerce market in the world, and has had incredible growth. But it's also a great platform for companies, when they enter a market, I guess it's a way they can start to test the interest in the product. So that's something. And again, talk to our staff in our office, because depending on what sector you're in, there's different e-commerce platforms, and we can point you in the right direction. So, ASOS for clothing, Argos for homewares, Ocado for groceries. You've got Look Fantastic, Feel Unique for cosmetics, and the Hut Group. So there's a range of different platforms that can be used.
Wonderful. Yeah, great advice, Tim. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I think, the insight that you've given to our viewers, there's a lot of support out there, as you mentioned and highlighted, and we will encourage all of our viewers to get in touch with your office and find out how, all that support's out there. So they really need to tap into that and trying to be as successful as they can by leveraging all your expertise.
Thanks, Lawrence. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Tim. Well, all the best, safe travels, and we look forward to staying in touch during your post over there in the coming months and years. Stick around. After the break, we'll be joined by the British Consul-General in Sydney and the Deputy Trade Commissioner for Australia and New Zealand, Louise Cantillon.
Think about the clothes you're wearing, the food you're eating, or even the furniture in your home. There is a story and history associated with every product you've ever bought. Unfortunately, sometimes the workers who make your products are subjected to terrible working conditions, are not treated fairly, or the manufacturing process is harmful to the environment. There are many forms of modern slavery and damaging production methods, but it's up to us, industry leaders and the consumers themselves, to take a stand so that we can contribute to a healthier planet and to changing the lives of everyone involved across the global supply chains for the better. Ethical Trade Alliance enables buyers to make informed choices on all of the products they purchase.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm now got the pleasure of being joined by Louise Cantillon, the British Consul-General in Sydney, and she's also the Deputy Trade Commissioner for Australia and New Zealand. Thanks for joining me, Louise. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Great to be here.
Great, thanks for joining me. Louise, you only just arrived fairly recently, about 8 months ago, you mentioned. How are you finding Australia so far?
Oh, yeah, I came from China, so it's quite a different place to live. We're loving, just the access to the outdoors that you have here, but also on a business level, just the warmth and enthusiasm there is for the UK at the moment makes my job so much easier. And it's been brilliant to engage. I think there's so much potential in the bilateral relationship that I'm really excited for what's in store for the next 3 years.
Fantastic, thank you. And I suppose as a follow-on from that, what are the benefits for the UK companies with the recent FTA, with the signing?
So I think that it's fair to say that businesses in both countries have been consulted throughout the negotiation process. And as a result, there is a trade deal which tailors benefits to both Australian and UK businesses. There will be new opportunities for British-made goods and world-class British services to grow in the Australian market and vice versa. In particular, one of the benefits will be the dropping of tariffs on all UK exports. So that means it'll be cheaper to buy some of our iconic products in Australia, like Scotch whisky, British fashion, and some of our cars.
Wonderful. Actually, that leads into my next question, Louise. So are there any specific industry sectors that you think will benefit more than others?
So I think one of the key, I think the benefits are right across industries. And I think one of the key benefits for all businesses will be around mobility. There will be access to business visas, so staff from both countries can relocate more easily. And I think this deal for the UK plays a really important role in levelling up. We want to make sure that it benefits towns, cities and rural areas right across the UK. There will be anticipated benefits for services sectors, including finance, legal, architecture, consultancy, but also in good exporters will benefit from the reduction in tariffs that I mentioned. The team here in Australia were actually already seeing an increase in inquiries just on the back of the sort of halo effect of the free trade agreement. So we're expecting there to be even more. Wonderful.
Well, that sort of leads into one of my next questions, Louise, is what's the attitude and the energy towards UK companies looking at the FTA? Are they quite excited, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Really excited. As I say, we've seen an increase in inquiries already. And, at each of those sort of key milestone moments, whether it was the agreement in principle or the signing, that causes a flurry of activity. And the team have been dealing with inquiries for, I guess, 2 years, but we've also got a specific new team in place now to deal with the trade, the free trade agreement and the activation, because there's going to be a lot of sort of learning from it as well on, what are the actual benefits and how do we make sure that businesses are using them. That's what I want to make sure, that this is not just a deal on paper, it's actually benefiting businesses in both countries.
Louise, what advice would you give to the UK companies specifically? You've arrived in Melbourne, or in Australia, I should say, and you got to see a little bit of the way we do business. What advice would you give them back in the UK?
I would say if you're not looking at Australia, you should be. And that there's so many reasons for that. We are great allies. We've got the same language. We've got the same sort of legal infrastructure. We both agree in the rule of law, and we've almost got the same sense of humour. So I would say that's a great start for business. Also, that Australia itself is a very tech-savvy and sophisticated market. It's a great place to test new ideas or to launch products. And also, you can be quite targeted in Australia because the majority of the population live in the biggest cities. So you could target sort of cities. But of course, my biggest advice would be to do a bit of research and then get in touch with my team, and we can help make that journey happen.
So finally, Louise, I know there's a lot of programs that the states and federal governments are doing here in Australia. What do you have in mind, and what are you planning to support UK companies with your programs?
Well, the team here in Australia over the past 2 years, we've already had quite a number of programs and events in place, whether that's roundtables or webinars. But just because of the context, that has been mainly in virtually. So I hope that this year we'll be able to continue those interactions, whether it's webinars, trade missions, working in partnership with the Australian British Chamber of Commerce to do a few more things in person. And if you're interested about them, again, I'd say get in touch with my team.
Wonderful. Well, please keep us posted on that. We'd love to support the promotion of that and keep people up to date. So thank you so much, Louise, for being on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me.
Great to meet you, Lawrence, and look forward to future cooperation.
Likewise. Thanks. I look forward I can meet you in person, hopefully throughout 2022.
Yes. Fingers crossed.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Louise. We'll speak again
Thank-
soon.
So thanks again for watching. We look forward to seeing you again very soon on the Trade Australia show on Import Export TV. Take care for now. Bye.